This is Van Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Tiffiny Newton. You're the president of IgniteHer, and we're going to talk today about recognizing red flags. But before we get to that, I usually ask every guest on the podcast a couple questions before you get to the heart of your story. So one of the questions we ask every guest is basically like, what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
Well, what motivates me, and first of all, thank you for having me here. What motivates me is giving a voice to those that are too afraid to speak. Far too often, victims will not report any domestic violence, sexual assault, any of that stuff because of guilt or shame of what happened. And they need to know someone's in their corner. So that is first and foremost why I do what I do, coming from a domestic violence relationship and being too afraid to reach out and too afraid to talk about it for many, many years. That when I started talking about it, everyone said, you need to speak more, you need to speak more, you need to speak more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm doing is really being able to help others.
I think that's always the kind of topic that we love to have is people who find their voice and then we give them a forum for that voice. And we tend to like to talk to a lot of female voices here because we're not part of the kind of brosphere.
Yeah.
That's been my wheelhouse since 2016. Is like I started giving independent singer-songwriters and primarily female singer-songwriters interviews versus like people were mostly focusing on male acts. And then I branched into anybody who's a creative and then people who are, do a therapist because they're still creative. Like every human being's creative, but I felt that kind of spark of creativity and voices being heard and given a forum for that type of conversation rather than, maybe resentment based, bro based.
Yeah.
Platforms that we see kind of taking over the algorithm, and I've always been like, why do we have to have that?
Yeah.
I know it's out there, but I want to give a chance for other people to speak.
Well, and far too often women, as we're taught is if we speak out, we're being too pushy, too naggy, too much of something, right? So we're taught young to be quiet and to do what your dad says, your brother says, your husband says, your boyfriend says. So we should be speaking more because there is, and this isn't like a feminist platform. This is just women in general to be, have your own human rights, right?
Yeah,
Is you have a voice.
I mean, I was a political science major and sociology major in college. And the idea of the study of groups and also, societies and social mores. And a lot of times the ideology becomes so prevalent and it's because it's your grandpas and your great grandpas. And then, those structures tend to be very like top down. We got this top down, like paternalistic kind of male focused structures. And even for, somebody like me, like I get to hit with it because the people don't see people like me. In my day job, I'm a software guy.
Yeah.
But even in the software world, I don't see a lot of people look like me.
Yeah.
And so like I have to, like if I speak out, it's like, oh, you're like, why are you speaking? It's the same kind of thing. It's like people. It's like you're being too uppity.
Yeah.
It's like so I run into the same vibe in a different way. But I still think like people should be humans. We're all citizens of the planet.
Exactly.
I think every person on the planet has a right to be on planet Earth and actually speak that voice. And no one group, whoever, should decide that they don't need to hear from this other group. We're like, why? Because it offends you? Like, why does it offend you for me to be here?
Yeah.
Right. And that's where I think
a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah, but that's the same. It's like the same idea. It's like if you can't speak, they don't want you to be there. So
Yeah.
you might as well not even be there. It's like, I'm just supposed to just subjugate myself to whatever you feel is proper.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's, being able to heal in this kind of environment, because it seems like I always say like, we're going back that we didn't learn the lessons of the 40s. And we're getting back into this kind of world where people want to say their roles. for certain types of people, and they want them to be in those roles.
Yeah.
And it seems like what's the 21st century, and we're back to that.
Well, I think taking that, I think there is a harmony in um, successful relationships and healthy relationships. You each decide a role to play. So there isn't the resentment. There isn't the issue of, well, I'm being told this or I'm being told that. You share certain things so you know where to operate within, right? And not
Mhm.
saying you can't go outside of that, but it's, I want to do X, Y, and Z, and he wants to do X, Y, ABC. So we both have our own freedoms within our own playground of the relationship. And I'm not saying, women just have to be in the kitchen. What if the man wants to do all the cooking, but you get to clean up the dishes afterwards, right? He dirtied the dishes, you clean them up. You both dirty the sheets, but he's doing laundry. Whatever
Yeah,
that role is.
for the conversation about like what's going to happen instead of maybe there's a old kind of my way or the highway.
Yeah, well, and too many cooks in the kitchen, right?
Yeah,
When you have so much like two type A personalities battling over who's doing what, your feelings are going to get hurt and resentment's going to happen, and that's not going to be healthy. That alone can be like dual-sided toxic. Um,
yeah,
a toxic
yeah, that the
relationship.
toxicity of the environment today was like communication to me, listening skills. Part of like being a sociologist was observation.
Yeah,
Observation of people like a microcosm level, like a personal level within a family structure, within
yeah,
relationships at the individual, and then overall group behavior. And
yep,
you could be in a toxic workplace. You could be in a toxic relationship. You could be
yep,
in a toxic neighborhood
yeah,
that's got violence or insecurity. So
yeah,
there's so many like triggers for people to kind of put up their back and not communicate or kind of go off to their own camp and then not really solve problems in a real productive way.
yeah.
So
And
it's like like how do you like start to navigate getting ownership of that environment?
so first and foremost, you can't control what you can't control,
Hmm.
right? So just realizing what you can control is your own reaction to whatever is happening around you. If you try to control everything, you're going to have a lousy, lousy life. You just cannot. I mean, I'm in the process of reading the Let Them Theory, right?
Hmm.
From Mel Robbins. You can only do what you can control, and you can control yourself and how you respond to things. And other than that, you have to give the freedom for the other person or other people in your life to do the same thing. If you try to control that, you're going to make it miserable for yourself, and you're going to make their lives miserable, and all of that's unhealthy.
Yeah, it's a little like let live and let live. It's hard for some people to do that because they
Yeah.
might be like even like if you're in a people pleasing mindset, like you might want things to be in that structure. So if somebody doesn't allow you to do that,
Yeah.
then you might go off because
Yeah.
like that's your wheelhouse. And if somebody doesn't prevent you from being in that wheelhouse, then that could be your trigger.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times it's like recognizing red flags is something we were talking about, but
Yeah.
like there are red flags within yourself, right? Like you kind of looking glass self. You like, how do I understand my trigger before I can understand somebody else's trigger, right? Don't I need to know my own?
Well, and I think if you're introspectively looking at your own red flags, a lot of times if you are like I want to use this in like computer terminology. If you're exporting
Mhm.
your red flags into the environment, a lot of times that is trauma-based reaction. So if I have a spouse or significant other that is like one of the biggest and most obvious red flags is extreme jealousy. Right? So if they are accusing me of things, accusing me of snooping, accusing me of cheating, of monitoring everything that I'm doing, you know what my reaction is going to be? Well, I'm going to do it anyway. If I'm getting accused of it, I might as well do it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the retaliatory side of it. And is that a red flag coming from me into that situation? Absolutely. But coming from someone who is in a domestic violence situation or a very extreme toxic domestic abuse situation, there doesn't have to be bruises and broken bones for it to be a
Very psychological, yeah.
domestic issue. But coming from that side, you comply. Instead of doing the retaliatory thing, you just say, you're right. You're right. I'm doing that. I'm sorry. And you just apologize. So you just comply with whatever they're saying and you get sucked into that. Because the minute you say, I'm sorry, you're giving into them and they're going to use it against you again and again and again
It's
and
like a
again and
bad loop.
again.
Yeah, you're just in this bad loop. Like in
Yeah.
programming, you get a bad loop and it's like the system errors out.
Yeah.
Eventually, it might crash. Like the first loop might not shut it down, but if it keeps on looping, then the whole thing burns out.
System error 404. I mean, we all
Yeah,
know that stupid
you're
screen, right?
yeah, you're done. It's like it's just a totally crash or crash the system. Control Alt Delete, reboot. So yeah, it just seems like a lot of times people get in these like codependencies. Where you call it like is that trauma bonding or is that codependency? Is that the same thing or something different?
I think it's there are slight differences with that. I would say trauma bonding, you're following a cycle, right? There's the honeymoon phase, there is the you're so amazing, like the gift giving, the love bombing, the everything is amazing situation where you feel like, where has this person been all my life? They're the love of my life situation. Well, then that builds into something where it can be controlling behavior. It can be a black eye. It can be you're getting thrown down the stairs. It can be many things. And then they apologize, you reconcile, and then you're back in hoping back for that honeymoon phase, right? So that toxic cycle, the trauma bonding itself, you're just hoping for that carrot that they're dangling. You're
Is there a
going to
yeah.
hell to get that carrot. And then they'll give you the carrot and then you're back on that treadmill toward that next carrot.
Is there a belief sometimes that you can redeem the person that's the abuser, that you can fix them? Or is that not
Um,
even in the factor? Or is it more like something else is going on that's not part of
I don't necessarily think you ever think you can fix them. I think and from my own experience, the process you go through is you're being told you're at fault. How can I fix myself to get them
well, it's
to
about
act
you. Or
better?
it's not about them trying to fix them, it's
It's
about you
never
fixing
about them. You're the problem. If you had done this, I wouldn't have done this. If you
yourself.
would act this way, our relationship would be better. If you didn't flirt with people, I wouldn't be so jealous. If you didn't do this, I wouldn't call you a piece of shit. Like it's a cycle where they are never at fault. You are always the one for the reason of whatever they did.
Now, in childhood, are there certain scenarios when you're growing up with your parents that set you up for this kind of cycle more than other ones?
Not in my experience because my childhood was actually really good. I mean, I was a people pleaser as a kid, right? I wanted to get good grades to make my parents happy. I was a God-fearing child, right? I wanted to make my parents happy. I didn't want to do anything wrong. Of course, I was bad every once in a while, right? But the whole gist of it is you wanted to make your parents proud because that's how I was raised is you want to make your parents proud. So lining this up into this relationship, I had never had a domestic abusive relationship up until this point, my
Mhm.
entire life. And I'm 50 years old right now. And I left my abuser 6 years ago. I was with him for 2 years. Never did I have an what I would have considered an abusive situation before. I've been married before. I had boyfriends before. Um, Never to this level.
Oh, wow. So you didn't have that kind of cycle that sometimes people find people are in these loops and they keep on going
Correct.
to the same type of, and sometimes when I've talked to people, it's because like in their family, like a mother or the father had kind of set that cycle. But you're
Yeah,
saying you didn't have that. So this
I didn't have that. And I really do speak with people that have been in that since childhood, and the next relationship they go into outside of their home is one that is that chaotic, because that chaos is their calm. That's all they know
that's what
as
they know.
normal.
Yeah. Like sometimes you get comfortable with your discomfort.
Yeah.
And if you're comfortable with that bad loop,
Yeah,
it's harder to get out of the bad loop. It's scarier to be outside of that
it
than to
is.
be in it until you get to a point where I guess you get the it just gets it's a trigger. Well, it's like the critical mass. Like at a certain point, like you can't accept it anymore. You won't accept it, and then you make that move to like I'm not accepting it anymore. Which
Yeah.
like how do you get to that point?
Well, and it's you come to a realization, right? There's only so far, like, you feel like you're in a movie and the abuser's controlling the narrative. So no matter what you see, feel, smell, touch, none of your senses matter because they're controlling all of it. And that is coercive control and psychological abuse, right? Like, if
Yeah.
they're controlling that much of you, they've taken over. If you say, um, I saw an email that you sent to this person, and you literally have seen it and you have a screenshot of it and you show it to them, they're like, that wasn't me.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
What do
that's
you
people
start to
the
believe?
countdown, it's very, Orwellian. Uh,
Yeah, you really feel like you've gone crazy. Um, and they do whatever they can to erase all of that. Like, he ripped the phone out of my hand and threw me on the floor and about broke my wrist. And you try to get out of these situations, but you're sucked back in by that trauma bond. That manipulation is, so it's like a rip tide. If you're near the water, the rip tide, if you even get anywhere close, it's sucking you back out to sea. um you it's just, you think you can control that situation, but until you hit your breaking point,
mhm.
and most people don't hit that breaking point until they've left 7 times. That's
Wow.
on average, is 7 times.
Is it like the shame of it, the embarrassment of it? What is like the thing that keeps you from pulling yourself out of that chaos? Is
They
it
do. They do. I promise I'll be better. This situation will be better. We'll get back to who we are. We're a team. It's you and me against the world. It's all the things that you want to hear. It's that carrot at the end of the stick. They suck
mhm.
you back in. It may be good for a day and then it's right back to where it is, but they have you where they want you. And then the abuse gets worse.
Is it being alone more scary than being in the chaos?
In that in that situation, yes. Because the chaos is that saying that it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't.
Mhm, it's like
So
the
in that
drama. Like
when
people get drawn into the drama.
Yeah, so you're in it, and that you can control it by complying. So it's fight, flight,
Like,
or freeze,
mhm,
right? And you freeze, you comply. You just do whatever to keep the peace.
yeah. And
And
sometimes, like, the drama itself is like that loop that like, if you don't have it,
yeah,
you feel like you're not living. You know, like, if you don't have that kind of, like chaos, um,
um, I don't think so, because without the chaos, it is peaceful. It's the reliance on the other person.
It's the reliance. Oh, it's actually the bonding, like the connection.
Yeah. Because
So the
you think
connect.
it's love,
Hmm.
and it's loyalty. You don't want to give up on a relationship. Like it's that loyalty that they're testing on a consistent basis, daily, sometimes
Hmm.
multiple times a day. It all depends on the person. But I think you asked a question earlier about um, the trauma bonding and codependency. They
Hmm.
can become interrelated. They're not the same, but like the abuse and manipulation get you bonded, and the codependency is the lack of self-worth,
Hmm.
right? And you can't really set boundaries because you're already sucked into the trauma bonding,
Yeah.
and your self-worth is completely chipped away because that's what they've been doing to get you trauma bonded. They're leaving you as like that empty shell of a being.
Hmm. Yeah, because sometimes they like they get this dynamic, and you could have an affinity for your kidnapper, like
Yeah.
Patty Hearst.
Yeah.
Like you get pulled into a situation. Like how could you align with the people that took you? But
Yeah.
if that's what you're in that moment, and you hit that connection,
Yeah.
it's kind of the right connection for your psychology at that time.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean, trips to Miami Beach, trips to Paris and Italy and, Vegas and, trips everywhere. But you go out one night and you're sitting there talking with a group of people. And by the end of the night, you're crying, even though it's supposed to be an amazing night. You're crying because they've told you what a piece of crap you are. Stop flirting with people, even though you're not flirting. Why don't you act like you're happy to be here when you have a smile on your face? Like the whole manipulation of everything literally makes you cuckoo crazy.
yeah, it's like all that, like it's just the power trip that that person is has
Yep.
is because they have this dominance over you, and they can, and you're not pulling away. You didn't run
Yeah.
out the door and then say forget it. You know,
Yeah.
the second you come back and then keep on coming back, then they know.
You've given them permission to continue on.
Mhm.
So that's how I got punched in the chest, spit on, backed into corners, things ripped out of my hands and smashed on the floor. Like literally, I'd come home to things that I cared about broken.
Broken well, and it
He
just
gave
seems
away things that I've had since college. He gave them away because he wanted to see me without it. It meant too much to me over him that he wanted it gone. So he gave it away to Goodwill.
so how did you start to break that pattern?
Realizing what was happening. It wasn't the first time I left. I think it was the second time that I left. I was sitting at a hotel and I tried to find, no, it wasn't. It was the fourth time that I left. I was sitting at a hotel and I hopped online to betterhelp.com. It
Mhm.
is the online therapy grouping, if no one knows what that is.
Yep.
And I found a therapist, and I it's like you're their online version of what they can chat with versus sitting in their chair.
Yep.
And instead of scheduling a time to sit and talk with them and you have to wait 2, 3, 4 weeks to see them, you have access to them 24/7 to the chat. So I started like typing out my things. She'd ask me a few questions. I'd type out more. And she's like, tell me more about this. Tell me more about this. So she was kind of like making me come to certain realizations.
Mhm. So you're able to
And
get immediate assistance.
exactly. So I may have had to wait like a couple hours or whatever, but I didn't have to wait for 2, 3, 4 weeks
Yeah,
to get
like the
a
typical
response.
like medical structure, which is probably not advantageous for that kind of scenario. Because
Exactly.
if you can go 24/7, and once you get into it and you can get to that help when you need it at the moment you need it,
Yep.
That seems
And
revolutionary for maybe this kind of scenario
it
because
was so powerful. Because through that, I could copy and paste things that he was saying. And she's like, no, that has nothing to do with you. It's everything to do with him. He's just trying to placate you. Like she was clearing the fog is the
yeah,
best way to
and
describe it.
that's awesome that you could get that individual level of care and then the context, like you
Yeah.
said, be able to give the context in the moment as things are happening,
Yep.
and
And
then
so I
not
started
be
to
yeah,
I started to like put together like my safety getaway kind of thing. So where they tell you through safety planning is to get a go bag or a go bag.
mhm,
Well, I started like emptying things out of the condo because we lived together. I put it in a suitcase saying that I was dropping it off at Goodwill, but I'd put it in a storage unit that I already had from moving out of my own condo.
mhm,
And then those Amazon boxes that you can ship your
yeah, you can put
Amazon
stuff
orders
yeah,
to, name Rudy or Level or whatever the names are outside of
mm,
gas stations and
yeah,
Home Depot and whatever. So I started shipping stuff there, punching in my code, grabbing the box, throwing it in the storage unit. So I like slowly built up things so he didn't recognize things were missing from the condo.
mhm,
I mean, the fourth time I left in the middle of a hurricane, if that tells you anything.
wow, so, yeah, well, you probably that's
I had
probably not
had
the
enough.
person to be with in
Yeah.
a hurricane because 'cause they're creating a hurricane anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And so the final time that I walked out the door, he had said something that just broke it. It literally was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I was like, "You're right. That person can do that. You go call that person." Because he did cheat on me, even though he says we were not cheating. He was manipulating the verbiage on all of that. Um, and I left. And as I was leaving, he said, "You should be on your knees begging to give me a BJ and begging to come back."
Mm,
So I was out the door, out the door. And I had all my stuff.
so that's actually the BetterHelp person helped you come up with that strategy, the
I
exit
came up with that
strategy?
strategy, realizing I had to get out, and somehow I had to get out.
Okay, but they so you but so at least that put you on the path to go in that
I
direction.
needed to know I wasn't crazy is
Yeah, you wanted, like,
was the
you had the
biggest thing.
confirmation of what was going on,
Yeah.
the outside and the thing is, like, if you talk like, the question is this, like, if do you talk to friends outside of BetterHelp about something like this, and were they not people that you felt comfortable talking to, or you needed somebody like a therapist to talk to?
Well, he had isolated me away from them.
Oh, so you weren't even able to get to them.
Yeah. Like, he had to approve, who I spoke to. He would check my phone, he would check my browser history, he had access to all my email, my Facebook, everything. He would go in and delete people and then accuse me of being friends with or following certain people when I was not. He literally would go on witch hunts through my social media and through my emails and my phone. He would send me to
That's
work
really
without my phone.
so a total control freak. So somebody that's, like, wanting to have control every aspect of, like, your life. That
Every single thing.
yeah, so that was that immediate when the relationship started, or did that kinda creep in?
So, it did not start immediately, and it started creeping in when, it was like a month or 2 after we started dating when he was like, "Well, why don't you have us as dating on Facebook?
Mhm.
Are you ashamed of me?" Like, starting to guilt trip me. And then, "Why are you friends with these specific guys on Facebook?" I mean, I was in bodybuilding for a few years. So I had friends in the bodybuilding community. I had been to bodybuilding camps in Canada and, all over the United States. And I
Mhm.
was friends with certain people. Even if I hadn't met them, we were like connected by friends of friends.
Yeah, because it's
And
natural to have, like, friends that are male and female, and but if
yeah,
you get somebody
especially
that's
in
got, like,
bodybuilding.
it's that, possessive,
Yeah.
that
Well, and
any
the crazy thing is in Facebook, it gives you the option of people you may know, right?
Mhm,
So if
yeah,
I know numerous people who are in the bodybuilding world, guess who pops up in my people you may know?
yeah, those people. Yeah.
Guys without shirts on, guys in bodybuilding outfits, girls in without clothes on, they're in bodybuilding outfits. Like that too pops up.
No,
Well,
his insecurity was like probably the driver for
so he
his.
saw that and he's like, why are you friends with these people? When I wasn't friends with them, it was the people you may know because of people I knew that were friends with them.
Well,
So
he's
he went
making,
through and
yeah.
deleted thousands of people. He changed my handle on Instagram from Tiffiny TPA to I am selfish one.
Oh, geez.
He went into Facebook and would message people as me, telling them they're a piece of shit. And then they would call me saying, what's going on? And he's like, see, you're in a relationship with that person. See, I knew not to trust you. I knew about all your past BS, like making up stuff.
Like his own insecurities was like driving his need to put it all on you. Because a
Yeah.
lot of times
Well,
the
he
person
was
that's the
hiding
most
something.
insecure, they put it on
He
the
was
other
hiding
person.
some things, right? So he went on a business trip out to Utah and hired a male prostitute.
Oh, wow. Well, that might make sense because sometimes the
So
people who are insecure in their sexuality can be very mean or aggressive
yeah,
and when they're in a relationship with a woman because
because
they're
it's
kind of
not, yeah,
blaming them for their own feelings toward men. And so if you're in somebody that's that complicated in
yeah.
terms of like not knowing where they are, then it's like it's you really aren't ready to be in that person's not ready to be in a relationship because they don't really know what's going on. And so they kind of need to have a looking glass self conversation with themselves
Which
to
with
they find, oh,
narcissistic tendencies, right? I'm not saying he's diagnosed narcissist because he won't go see a therapist or he wouldn't go see a therapist.
mhm,
But he had the tendencies, and that is prime action for them, right? They have this mask on, and if you start to see behind the mask, things can get violent because
yeah.
they will do anything to not allow anyone behind that mask.
Yeah, well, everybody wears a mask, and this depends on how deep it is.
Yeah.
But but it just seems like you're able to finally navigate to a safe place and
Yes.
to get yourself out of that loop.
Yeah.
And is it a constant like work to make yourself stay in the safe place? You don't feel yourself ever kind of thinking that you would ever go back to that kind of situation, right?
Never. So that's the biggest thing about me wanting to teach people about red flags, because things will appear to you when you know about red flags that you would have never realized before. Some of them are obvious, right? The big glaring red flags that most people are aware of. And then others are more covert or sneaky red flags. And
Mhm.
those alone you may not think that they're a red flag, but they're often combined with other little sneaky ones. And all of that leads into a much more dangerous situation.
Yeah,
So,
because sometimes you might just like just pass over it because you don't want to believe it,
yeah,
or because like you said, you're comfortable with the relationship because you don't want to be alone, and you're kind of paired to that trauma,
yeah,
and to break out of it is to like you put yourself on this this island away from it, and you're not prepared to take that trip.
yeah. I mean, like as an example, something that is very sneaky is they're going to test your loyalty.
Hmm.
By itself, no one wants to be put to a test, right? You either
Yeah,
care about someone or you don't, and no one wants to be put to a test. But pushing you to choose them over everybody else in all kinds of situations is a sneaky red flag
and
and
that's
can
women
become a
and
big
men. It's like if
glaring
they
one.
start cutting off like your best friend and somebody that's like a coworker, not a relationship, like a boss, is like acting like you can't deal with people that are like in your life, like your own family. If they start saying you can't even go to your family,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, he tried to get me fired numerous times. Is it me or the job? Which is more important? And
Mhm.
of course, he was making probably $250,000 a year, but he didn't like the fact that I had a savings account. So he drained half of it.
So he just wanted you dependent on his money?
He wanted me completely dependent on him, not just
Mm.
on his money. He wanted me to think of him as the idol. No one else should be up on this pedestal except for him. If I was to go on Facebook, I could only post about him or us, and I could only refer to him as young looking, good looking, that I was so lucky to be with him.
Did he
Only
have you hang
monetary.
around Did you hang around his friends, or you only were able to be with him with no other people around?
He worked so much, there wasn't a lot of friend interaction, but when we did, like, we went on a trip to Italy through for his work, and one of the appointments that we had to go on, I was with the group of people at the beginning, and then I went and, like, did some errands while they were in a meeting. By the time he got back from the meeting, he accused me of that interaction prior to their meeting, that I was flirting with one of his coworkers.
Oh, geez.
So it became this huge argument, this huge fight. By the time we got to our next destination, and I was like trying to stand up for myself, he told the taxi driver to pull over and let me out in Italy
And just leave you out there
by
by yourself.
myself. Yeah,
So,
yeah,
like, that it is trying to put you in, like, the total control situations to make you
yeah.
feel like you don't have any control, right?
Yep, exactly. I mean, the biggest red flag for anyone to, like, if they even suspect, keep tabs on how you feel. Like, either someone's going to drain your battery or they're going to charge your battery.
Mhm.
And if any point you feel emotionally, mentally or physically drained, that's a red flag.
Although some people, like, this hit you, like, with overwhelming, like, they just keep on hitting you with all these, like, making everything a crisis. So if you can't have any peace and everything's always like a drama, it's a drama,
Yeah.
drama, drama all the time,
Yep.
so you can't even get a little break, then that doesn't feel right. So that should be like a flag that they like, that's not how a relationship shouldn't make you be in a stress zone
Yeah.
all the time.
Well, and especially if you're in it, like your cortisol levels are being fried. Like you can't sleep. They don't want you to sleep. I had to sleep. He made me sleep with the lights on.
Mm,
In fact, I went to turn them off and he came back out of the bedroom and turned them back on. He's like, "This is my house. You're going to sleep with it with the lights on."
jeez. That is total control structure. Yeah, that's like,
He demanded things specifically every day, but if I asked for something, it was like, "No, you don't even deserve that. Your behavior is terrible. Why would you even think that you are deserving of that?" And that's
from
just me begging him to love me. I have an
mm,
email of, "I just want us to be back like how we first met." Like, it is full on trauma reaction.
mm, to try
"This
to
is
bring
all
it
I want
back.
for Christmas. I don't want a gift. I just want things to be back to normal. I want you to be able to trust me." I didn't do anything that was untrustworthy, but he made me feel I did, and he used it over my head all the time.
Is this behavior, did you ever find out this how he behaves with every woman he's ever been with, or is it somehow
I have no
the same?
idea.
You have no idea,
I
but
have no
you got
idea. I do know that he would, stalk exes online. I did find, instances of that because he was accusing me of doing that. So guess what happens when someone's accusing you of doing something? They're probably doing it.
more like projection.
Yeah,
There's a lot of sounds like he did a lot of projection.
a lot of projection. I mean,
Could you
that's kind of the biggest red flag, right? Is, you're doing this, you're doing that, the accusations, when they're the ones doing it.
Yeah,
Because
that's the typical projector is like
yeah,
exactly what they're saying you did. Like, well, you never even anywhere in the zone of what they're saying is
yeah,
because they have a guilt and shame. So they
yeah,
have to try to transfer it to the other. to make themselves feel better
Yeah.
because they can't be true to themselves. Like, they
Yeah.
lie to themselves all the time.
Yeah.
People
And I
who do that
mean,
kind
they'll
of
utilize that and push boundaries. Like there were times where, and not to be graphic, but there were times when he was very aggressive during sex
Mhm.
and it wasn't comfortable, but he wouldn't back away. So it was very forceful. And then the next day, he would demand it again. Well, I was a little damaged from the day before. So then I got accused of having sex with my boss while I was at work. Who are you
Jeez.
having sex with at work? No, that was from him the day before. And different things that I said where I wasn't comfortable with, he didn't care.
Yeah, well, that's just the kind of toxic masculinity that's been
Well,
getting
it's
pushed.
rape.
Yeah,
It's
it's
rape.
that's what it
It's
is, but
sexual
then
assault.
there's a culture out there where, like, like, men are getting hit with this idea, like, Andrew Tate type of thing, that that's the way you should be, right? Not that I'm gonna excuse people because 'cause they're following somebody like that, some kinda influencer,
Yeah.
but if young men are being given this garbage,
Yeah.
that's how you treat women, and that's how you get to be like an A-level person, and people make money projecting that. That's
And
very
those kind of
toxic. Yeah.
people are not, and I don't know, your religious background, but I was raised to fear God and fear the consequences of my parents, right? They
Mm,
would put the fear of God in me, right?
mhm.
And one of the biggest things that I believe is people who believe that don't have a fear of God. They don't have a fear of the consequences because what if it was their mom that was done to, or what if it was their sister, or what if it was their child? They wouldn't react that way.
Yeah, well, I think it's a disrespect of women, and I kind of believe in.
Overwhelming
Yeah,
disrespect.
the total disrespect and this kind of my toxic masculinity that's kind of rampant is like a disease
Yeah.
that's infecting a lot of men
Yeah.
that don't seem to understand that that's not how you have a natural, positive relationship with another human being.
Yeah. Well,
That
and this is one of the reasons of I'm getting certified to teach self-defense in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu,
Mhm.
because I guarantee you if my ex were to come to me today, I could break his arm, I could break his leg, or I could render him unconscious so I could get away safely. That
But it's
is
important to
how
have self-defense when you know there's, like, that this kind of toxicity in the environment.
it's everywhere. Not
Yeah,
just the toxicity, but the acceptance, or not acceptance, but the ignorance or the pushing away of domestic violence and sexual assault.
well,
One
yeah,
in
trying to
3
normalize it
teenagers.
in culture. Like, you got a
Yeah,
culture of violence, like, in media and,
yeah,
video games, music,
yeah,
films that glorify certain behavior and then
yeah,
excuse it, and, powerful people who get away with it, they excuse it, they normalize it, and,
yeah,
that's the whole thing with sociology. You shouldn't normalize, like, destructive mores.
exactly.
If you normalize destructive mores, it's counterproductive to the growth of the society, because then
Absolutely.
it just create all this havoc and all this destruction because you create all that tension and stress, people aren't gonna be as efficient, they're not gonna be as productive to society overall, so it's not very positive to do this.
Well,
You don't wanna make it
corporations
all about.
lose millions of dollars
Yeah,
if one of their employees is gone. I mean, it's everywhere. Like,
yeah.
it literally is everywhere.
Yeah, because it's like the corporations should be very, keen on this because, GDP, economics, actuarial, they say if people are stressed because of bad behavior and bad social mores and sexual violence and
Yeah,
domestic violence, like they're not going to be thinking about their job. In the
yeah,
back of their head, they're thinking about being safe. Right.
exactly.
And so that is something that's it's a crisis. It's like a disease. And it should be treated with a lot of respect in terms of people understanding it and not prejudging it and having a point of view that it doesn't understand where people are coming from, because people, violence toward any human being is wrong, and toward women is just unbelievably it's unacceptable. And I just don't think there's any place where you can be a man and say that that's acceptable. At least
I
my
absolutely agree.
so I know that I have some I might have to cut this off at this point because I do have a live podcast to do, but I want to refer to your URL, your TiffanyNewton.com. If people click on your URL, is that how they get in touch with you, and that's how they connect with you?
Yeah, so it's got a whole bunch of great information in there. It has access to where they can buy my book, Behind the Smile. It's wherever books are sold. And, that's the first part of my mission, is sharing. This is kind of a guide on how people who know someone in a domestic violence situation, how they can approach them, how they can safely get them information or find out if they're in a situation. And then the second part is and it's on the website as well, is the money from this book goes to fund teaching women domestic self-defense.
Well, that's important.
So that's where the proceeds of this book are going.
Well, I want to thank you for bringing your book and your conversation about recognizing red flags. And I do encourage people to click on the link to check that out and to support what you're doing, which is very, very important to do that. And I want to thank you for being a guest on the Family Electric Ghost podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you.